Hello everybody and welcome to FYSM 1210B, that is Philosophy of Mind and AI, or as I have kind of been calling it, Minds and Machines. I'm Dr. Josh Redstone and I'm going to be your instructor for this first year philosophy seminar being offered through Carleton University. So welcome to all of my students, and welcome to anyone else who might have stumbled upon this little video series. You're welcome to follow along even if you're not in my classroom, but of course when it comes to answering questions and whatnot about the material, I will have to give priority to all of my students. So of course this is a first year seminar that's being delivered online due to COVID-19. Today's lecture will not be very intense at all. There are no PowerPoint presentations, no notes that you really need to worry about taking. I decided what I would do to kick things off so that we can slowly ease our way into this class is just to go over the course outline with you. Now, if you're a student, you will have access to this course outline on the CU Learn page for this course. And I highly recommend that you open that up on your computer or print it out and follow along as I explain everything in this lecture. I'll just be going over everything one step at a time, section by section. We're going to talk about what this class is all about, what I expect in terms of assignments and the quality of your work, what I'm going to do for you as the instructor, so on and so forth. So with that said, why don't we dive into this exciting course outlines for Minds and Machines. All right, let's do it. Now, as you'll note on the course outline under class information, this class, well rather the video lectures for this class, will go live on my YouTube channel. And of course, if you're watching this video, you've already found my YouTube channel. There's a link to it on CU Learn, which everybody should check out. So, I deliver the lectures Mondays and Wednesdays, and I'm going to do my very best to have them uploaded by 11:35 a.m. And that is, of course, because were we meeting live, that is when we would be meeting. This is technically an asynchronous course, but I feel like it's beneficial to all of you as well as to me if we try and stick to a schedule. So Mondays and Wednesdays for sure, and more than likely most of the lectures will always be up by 11:35 a.m. on those days. Of course, if I run into a technical difficulty or any other kind of hiccup like that, I will make an announcement via the announcements forum on CU Learn to let you all know. So be sure to regularly check your emails for announcements like that. All right. Obviously, there's no location for this class. It's being delivered virtually, and I don't really have an office, although we'll get to office hours in a moment. And of course, there are no course prerequisites. This is a first-year seminar, and some of you may have had some acquaintance with philosophy, perhaps even with some of the materials that we'll be talking about in this class, some of the readings like Plato and Aristotle. Perhaps some of you have encountered this type of thing in high school before, if you've been fortunate enough to take a philosophy class in high school. But I don't expect you to have any familiarity with philosophy at all. So obviously there are no hard prerequisites for this class. I will be teaching everything to you as if you have never even heard of philosophy before. So that's the approach we'll be taking here. One other important bit of information before we get to the real meat and potatoes of the course outline, which is the course description and how you will be evaluated and the work you will be expected to complete, is some instructor information. As I've already said, my name is Dr. Josh Redstone. Please feel free to call me Josh when you email me or hit me up on Discord or type in a comment under the video here in the comments section. No need to call me professor because I'm technically not one. I am merely an instructor. You can call me doctor if you like, but you don't have to. Okay? So Josh is just fine. And if you need to get a hold of me, say, for example, by email, you can reach me at josh.redstone@ carleton.ca. Okay? And again, that is contained in the course outline, so it's all there for you. There are other ways to get a hold of me, of course. You can drop a comment in the comment section on my video lectures, or you can talk to me on my Discord server, and I'll have more to say about that in just a moment. Now, before we take a look at the class description or course description contained in your course outline, I just had a couple things I wanted to say about this class, and a couple things about my background as well. When I was an undergraduate, all those years ago, I developed a keen interest in the kinds of questions we'll be tackling in this course. And these are questions like, what is the mind? Is the mind machine-like, like a computer? And can computers really be said to think? Could we make a computer or a robot that thinks like a human being, or perhaps even experiences things like a human being? These were questions that I really started to get interested in as an undergraduate, and I was very lucky enough to have some professors who would give me free rein to explore, kind of far out questions like this in courses where you wouldn't expect to touch upon any research questions like this. So I was very fortunate in that regard to have professors who enabled me to go out and kind of learn a lot about this stuff on my own. But looking back, I always thought that it would have been really cool when I was an undergrad if there were a course all about minds and machines, all about philosophy and AI that goes back, all the way back in the Western tradition to the Greeks, and all the way forward until the present day. And that's kind of what this class is going to be. This class is, at least the way I've tried to design it, is a class that I would have loved to have taken as an undergraduate, but which was unfortunately not available. That's not to say there aren't classes like this available elsewhere, but this is the one that I've put together to address the kinds of questions that really piqued my interest starting in my undergrad years and all the way throughout grad school. In fact, I've stuck with this kind of area of study, this area of inquiry, throughout most of my academic career. I'm interested in what the nature of the mind is. I'm interested in artificial intelligence. I'm interested in the philosophy of mind, the philosophy of cognitive science, and of course the practice of cognitive science itself, which is the interdisciplinary study of the mental. So that's where I'm coming from as your instructor. I'm just trying to deliver a very interesting class to you that has to do with the nature of the mind and whether the mind is machine-like, like a computer, or whether the mind is something mysterious and ineffable and intractable, like perhaps the notion of a soul that we find in many religions around the world. So, with that said, I'll just sort of paraphrase bits of the course outline here. Now you, if you're taking this class, have probably wondered to yourself, what is the mind? Just what is this thing that I think with? Is it immaterial and mysterious, like I mentioned a moment ago, or is the mind brain, if you like, really just a very complicated natural machine, a naturally evolved computer, if you like? Well, if you're interested in these kinds of questions, I think you will find this class very interesting, because as I gestured at a moment ago, we're going to go back in time, and we're going to learn that since antiquity, philosophers have been considering these kinds of questions, the very same questions that we will treat in this class. For example, ancient Greek thinkers like Plato and Aristotle had a lot to say about what we now call the mind, what they would have called the rational soul, a sort of thinking thing, an immaterial thing that is essentially you. Yes, Plato and Aristotle had a lot to say about that, and we're going to read some of their work. In doing so, we'll sort of learn about, I guess, some of the initial ways that human beings started to think about minds and about what minds do. Reasoning, thinking, remembering, knowing, solving problems, this kind of thing. So we're going to go all the way back to Plato and Aristotle to begin with, and we're going to slowly move up until the present day. We'll move through the modern period, for example, where we find philosophers like Rene Descartes, who thought that the soul, the mind, the soul, essentially the same thing for Descartes, was an immaterial, mysterious substance, but that the body was more like a machine, a natural machine. We'll meet other modern thinkers like Thomas Hobbes and thinkers like him, who thought that, well, the body is a machine, the mind is also a machine. And here's where we first start to, get the first glimpse of what will turn out to be a very modern understanding of the mind, and that is that the mind is like a computer, or more accurately, that the mind is a computer. As we work our way forward, we'll finally reach the 20th century, where we're going to consider the work of some very interesting thinkers. We'll look at the work of Alan Turing, for example. Alan Turing was the figure who conceived of what we call a Turing machine, which was a way of formalizing the notion of computation as rule-governed information processing. And he also came up with a little something called the Turing test, which you may have heard of. A test with which we could judge or determine whether a machine can be said to think. And of course, machine here means a digital computer. We'll talk about the work of Hilary Putnam, another important 20th century philosopher. Hilary Putnam conceived of this idea that we now call functionalism, and as we'll see, his work relies quite heavily on Turing's work, and it is because of Putnam and machine functionalism that we now have this interesting way of talking about minds and thinking in terms of, not necessarily the stuff that the mind is made of, but what the mind is actually doing. We'll also talk about the work of John Searle, who is quite critical of, some of the ideas of Turing and of Putnam. And we'll move up on into the future and look at some of the work of Daniel Dennett, a very interesting philosopher of mind who's written a lot about these kinds of things, thinking machines and the nature of consciousness and artificial intelligence. Very interesting stuff there. Of course, as we proceed throughout this course, we're going to do more than just learn about the mind as it's been conceived of through intellectual history or the philosophical tradition, whether it is like a soul or a machine or something else. We'll do more than that. We'll also learn about different areas of philosophy. When we start talking about Plato's and Aristotle's understanding of the soul, we're going to have to talk a little bit about metaphysics, for example. Metaphysics is the branch of philosophy that studies reality. We're going to have to talk a little bit about epistemology, for example, when we talk about not only Plato and Aristotle, but Rene Descartes. Epistemology is the study of knowledge. How do we know things? How do we know when we know something? What's the difference between knowledge and mere belief? This kind of thing. So we'll be touching upon different areas of philosophy, and we'll be touching upon different philosophical questions and philosophical problems that have arisen throughout the years. We'll talk about questions that are intimately related to, the debate over free will, whether we have freedom of the will or whether we're perhaps more like machines that are determined by the laws of physics. We'll talk about the nature of consciousness. We'll talk about whether machines can be said to think. We'll talk about the mind-body problem. What is the relationship of the mind to the body, and vice versa. We'll talk about a lot of these classic perennial questions that come up in philosophy throughout this course. So if what I'm telling you seems a little overwhelming, if this is a little bit of information overload, don't worry. We're going to come back to these questions and ideas throughout the class, and by the end of the semester, you will all be very fluent in the history of the mind in philosophy, if you like. All right. So that's about all I have to say about what we're going to be doing in this class in terms of broad strokes and general ideas. Let's talk a little bit about the textbook and accessing course materials and what you'll be evaluated on and what your workload will be like. Well, I've tried to make this class a little bit easier on all of your bank accounts by not requiring that you buy a textbook. So there's no required textbook for this class. Rather, all of the readings can be accessed online, and they'll be available on websites like the MIT Classics, Project Gutenberg, these kinds of things. They're all freely available. And I will also have papers available for papers that might be a little bit harder for you to track down online by yourselves. In any case, you can find all of these materials uploaded to CU Learn, and they're all placed according to which week we'll be reading them. So be sure to check out CU Learn to access course materials. I'm sure you already have if you're watching this lecture. You can also find this course outline there, our lecture schedule. Any notes or PowerPoint slides that I might make available will also be posted there. And you're also going to find the discussion forums and the announcement forums. The announcement forums are where I will post announcements to do with this class. When I do that, you will receive an email. So be sure to check your student email often. And the discussion forums are going to be important because that's how you're going to participate in a little bit of virtual discussion in this class. But I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. Below that, you will see the evaluation table. So there's a few different grade items. We've got things like participation, which I'll talk about in a moment, which is worth up to 10% of your course grade. There will be 3 reading responses. One is due February 3rd, the other February 24th, and the final reading response will be due March 24th. And these are just short responses to the readings and lectures where you critically engage with the material. Kind of like practice for writing your essay, or perhaps a space you can use to develop ideas for your final essay. Speaking of that, you're going to have to write a final term paper, which is going to be due on the last day of the exam period, April 27th. That'll be worth 45% of your grade for this class. You'll also have to do a topic proposal for your term paper. That'll be worth 20%, and that's due on March 10th. And finally, as we'll see in a moment, the last couple of lectures for this class are going to be what I like to call special topics. Basically, we're all going to decide together what the topics of those 2 last lectures will be. And by making a suggestion for a possible special topic, you can earn some easy marks. So that'll be good. All right. As for our lecture schedule, which you can also find on page 2, always keep in mind that this schedule may be subject to minor revisions depending on how the course goes. You know, we're in uncertain times right now, what with COVID-19 and everything. So you never know. Things happen in your lives, things happen in my life. Unexpected things can happen is my point, but we can deal with that as the course unfolds. But we will try to stick to the schedule as close as we can. So for week 1, we have this lecture, which is just the intro and course outline. And for our next lecture on Wednesday, I'm just going to talk a little bit more about the mind to try to get you all up to speed on some ideas and concepts and terminology that you'll need to know before we really get into the course material. For that one, you're going to read They're Made Out of Meat, a short story by Terry Bisson, published in 1991, and I think you'll all enjoy it. I've also made a link available for a short film adaptation if you'd like to watch that as well. On week 2, we're going to get into Plato on the Soul, and we're going to be reading 2 of Plato's dialogues, the Meno and the Phaedo, and we'll start talking a little bit about what Plato understands the soul to be, what he thinks knowledge and reason are, and all those types of things. In the 3rd week, we'll still be talking about On the Soul, but we'll be talking about Aristotle's On the Soul. Literally, he wrote a book called On the Soul, and we're going to read all 3 books of On the Soul, or De Anima. That's its Latin title. In week 4, which is right around the beginning of February, we're going to take a look at the work of René Descartes. We're going to talk about what Descartes thought reason was and what he thought the mind was. And here's where we will run into that old chestnut, the mind-body problem. So that'll be fun. We'll read Meditations on First Philosophy, a classic in the modern philosophical canon. And of course, your first reading response is going to be due that week as well. It would be due on February 3rd. But I'll have more to say about the reading responses before the first one is due. On week 5, we'll move forward and we'll read some selections from Thomas Hobbes' Leviathan. Hobbes was a materialist thinker. I'll explain what that means when I lecture on him. But basically, he agreed with René Descartes that the body was an intricate machine, but he disagreed about the soul. The mind, for Thomas Hobbes, was also quite machine-like. Then, it's reading week. So for the 15th and 17th, there are no classes. Get some rest, study hard, ask me questions via email or Discord. Otherwise, enjoy yourself. Read some philosophy. Watch some science fiction. Do something fun. When we come back from reading week, which is the week of February 22nd, that's week 6 of this class, we'll look at Julien Offray de la Méttrie's book, L'Homme Machine. And I apologize for my terrible French. That's his book, Man a Machine, where, as you will no doubt have guessed, Lemaitre argues that the human being is like a machine, not some kind of mysterious, ineffable, essential soul-powered type of machine like Descartes thought, but much more of a machine along the lines that Hobbes was thinking when he treated the human being as a machine. Did I just say Hobbes? Hobbes. Well, of course, your second reading response will be due that week as well. After that, we're going to take a little break from the materials, and we're going to talk about how to write an essay. I will deliver a lecture on how to write an essay during week 7. That way, you'll all kind of know what you need to do in order to do your essay topic proposal and to get started on writing your final paper. Most of you will be taking a university class for the first time. Some of you may be fresh out of high school, and some of you may be mature students returning to school after a few years in the workforce. But in any case, it's always good to make sure you know how to write a university paper, because I will tell you, the recent high school graduates will perhaps be the most unnerved by this, but the 5-paragraph essay is just not how we do things in university. So forget that 5-paragraph essay you learned in high school. I'm going to show you how it's done. There's also an essay workshop scheduled for that week. That'll basically just be the Wednesday class, and I'll be on Discord all day long, and you can hop on my Discord server and pick my brain about your essay. Could be coming up with a topic, questions you have about how to make sure your essay is good, how to conduct research, or come up with a thesis statement or a research question, all of that stuff. So that's what we'll do that week. Then we're going to come straight to the 20th century, and in week 8 we're going to talk about Alan Turing. We'll talk about Turing machines and the Turing test, and you'll be reading his classic paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence. From then on, we'll move on to talk about machine functionalism and the work of Hilary Putnam. We'll be reading his paper, Minds and Machines. That's during week 9. And your special topic selection, or special topic suggestion, I should say, will be due this week on the 15th. Easy marks. Oh, and I forgot to mention your term paper topic proposal will be due 5 days prior to that, on the 10th. All right. On week 10, we're going to talk a little bit about passing the Turing test. Now, passing the Turing test is kind of philosophical shorthand of saying a machine can think. We're going to talk about whether that's possible or whether the Turing test is a good test of whether machines can think. And if you're a little confused about all of this, don't worry. I will explain what the Turing test is when the time comes. But basically, it's a test of communication between a human and a machine to see if the human can tell whether she is talking to another human or to a computer. So that's basically the Turing test. And we'll be looking at 2 classic papers here. We'll be looking at A paper by Joseph Wiesenbaum about ELIZA, a very early chatbot, a very early effort at natural language processing using artificial intelligence. And we'll be reading a paper called Minds, Brains, and Programs, written by John Searle, which criticizes the idea that crunching numbers and manipulating symbols is sufficient for thinking. Turing thought that perhaps it was, but Searle disagrees, as we'll see. On week 11, we'll talk about the work of Daniel Dennett. We'll be reading Why You Can't Make a Computer That Feels Pain. And here we'll be moving beyond the question of whether machines can think, and whether the thing we think with, our brain, or our mind brain if you like, is like a machine. And we'll be talking about whether machines can experience things. So very cool, very sci-fi. It's going to be fun. Week 12, of course, will be our special topics lectures. So we'll have 2 lectures. You will all suggest topics. I will put all of those topics to a vote, so long as they pertain to this class. If I judge that they don't, I won't include them. But if you have an interesting question or an interesting idea, perhaps you're really interested in robots, like I was when I was an undergrad, and still am. Perhaps you'd like a lecture on robotics. Well, if everybody agrees and robotics gets a lot of votes, I'll do a lecture on robotics for you, and it'll be great. Or I'll do a lecture on whatever other interesting topics get the majority of votes. And week 13, we've only got 1 class, and that's on April 12th. I'll talk a little bit about, what we've learned, and we'll try to wrap up the course and see if we can offer any conclusions about minds and machines after we've gone through all these readings and had all these discussions and written all of these reading responses. All right. A lot of the other stuff that's in the syllabus I've already mentioned. Lectures will be posted to my YouTube channel Mondays and Wednesdays. If you're here, you already know that. If you've read the syllabus, you already know that. So I won't say too much more about that, other than that I expect you to do the readings before you watch the lectures. My lectures will focus in on important parts from the readings, but they're not going to exhaustively explain everything for you. And you really will need to have done the readings to get the context. Of course, if there's something you don't understand in the readings, that's fine. Let me know. Talk to me via email, YouTube comment section, Discord server, whatever you like. You can also schedule some office hours with me. Office hours, of course, need to be held virtually, and that's why you can join my Discord server, and that way we can, rather than just email one another, we can do it via audio or video, and then it's, a little bit more human-like. It feels a little bit more like we're actually all interacting with one another, which is nice, given this time when we're all kind of isolated thanks to COVID-19, right? So, make an appointment for a virtual meeting at any time. Do not be shy. Reach out to me. I want you all to do well in this class, and if you do not do well, that's on me as your instructor. So don't be shy. My door is always open, even though I don't really have a door. My Discord server is always open. Readings and participation. Well, we've already gone through the reading list, and you'll know that this class is being delivered virtually, so as I just said, you really need to keep up with the readings for this class. My lectures help to make the readings accessible and focus in on the important parts, but you really do need to read the entire reading, okay? And it's to your benefit if you do that before the lecture rather than after. But some people learn differently, and I realize there may be some students who would rather listen to me talk first and then read the readings. That's okay if that works for you. Just be careful not to fall behind, okay? Okay. Now, under normal circumstances, we'd be meeting in person and shooting the breeze, as the kids say, about all of this material together, all in one big seminar room. But we can't do that because we're delivering this class remotely. People are in different time zones. People may have day jobs and are not available during the day when my lectures are posted. So we're not going to be doing that. But you do need to participate a little bit in this class beyond just completing the assignments. You'll be expected, starting in week 3, to offer some engagement with the material on the discussion boards on CU Learn. So these are basically just discussion forums, and I will create a new thread for each week. And all you have to do is engage with one another or with myself on there once per week, starting in week 3. You could ask a question, you could make an observation, you could seek clarification, you could talk about something you found interesting, you could talk about something you agree with or disagree with. And if you do this with yourselves, with each other, and with myself, it'll help you digest the material, and it will show me that you're engaged with the material. And you'll do this for 10 weeks, starting week 3 till towards the end of the class. I believe perhaps around the special topics lectures is when we'll stop. But you'll have to do a minimum of 1 weekly post, and you get 1 percentage point for doing that, for a total of 10 participation points in this class. You don't have to do very much. Again, this is just a way for me to know that you are following along and working on the stuff that you need to be working on. Okay? So if you do have an interesting question about the material, or there's something you're really stuck on and you really don't understand and you need to ask me for help, you can send me an email, you can talk to me on Discord, or you can save your question for the discussion forums for that week, and you can earn yourself some participation marks. So keep that in mind. In this class, you'll have to complete 3 reading responses, and these are just, kind of like critical reflections on an idea that you find interesting. And it can be an idea from any one of the classes that have taken place prior to when that reading response is due. So for reading response 1, I forget when I said that was due. I think it's early in February. But you could discuss any aspect of the material you like, that you found interesting, prior to the due date for that critical response. And I will tell you a little bit more about what I expect during our next lecture. But for now, I'll just say that they should be about 300 to 400 words in length, and you need to cite your sources properly. So I will tell you how to do that again in our next lecture. You just have to identify an interesting idea and expand upon it. Engage with it critically. Show me that you're thinking about it using your writing, your rational speech, as Plato and Aristotle would have said. I've already talked about your special topic suggestions, so I won't say too much more about this. But this is just a good way for you to earn what are basically more participation marks. If you suggest a topic, you get 2.5% put towards your final grade. And as long as the topic is relevant to the class, say robotics or brain enhancing cybernetic implants or something cool like that, and I consider it and I design a lecture on it, then that's great. It'll all be fun. It'll be fun for me, and it'll be fun for you as well. So just remember, those submissions or suggestions are due on March 15th. They don't have to be very detailed. You could just tell me, for example, I'm very interested in robotics and I'd like to have a lecture on humanoid robots, or the uncanny valley phenomenon, or something like that. So that's the kind of thing I'm expecting for your special topic suggestions. And then, of course, you'll all vote. I'll create a poll on CU Learn. Everyone votes on their on the most interesting topic once I narrow the list down, and I lecture on the most popular too. And we'll do that for our third last and second last classes. Your paper topic proposal. Well, I guess I've already said a little bit about that. I'm going to deliver my lecture on how to write a research essay and how to do your proposal on March 1st. You can hit me up on Discord throughout March 3rd, or any time really, to ask me questions about it. And your proposal should be 500 to 6 words in length, and basically identify the topic of your term paper, your thesis statement or your research question. Present a plan or an outline of the research you intend to conduct, or how you intend to make your argument. And this allows me to give you some feedback before you go off and write a paper that perhaps turns out to be not the best paper, right? So this is a way for me to kind of keep my finger on the pulse of the class's work. And of course, the term paper itself serves as your final exam. So it's a take-home final, which means that it's due on the last day of the exam period. That's 11:59 p.m. on April 27th. The paper should be 1,500 to 2,000 words long. It should deal with an idea or a topic or a question that you've stumbled upon in this course that really interests you. And this is a research essay, so you'll be expected to conduct a little bit of research for it, and I'll tell you how to do that during the essay writing lecture. I'll provide a lot of feedback on your essay proposals, though, so that you're well prepared to go ahead and get started on writing the actual paper. And again, if you're stuck or if you have questions at any time, please do let me know. There are a lot of ways to get a hold of me and a lot of ways that I can help you all out. So please don't be shy. Last couple of things. Well, we have the assignment deferral policy. This is basically just, if you miss a due date due to illness or bereavement, you've got to let me know as soon as possible. You've got to let me know within 24 hours of missing the test or the assignment. And you have to provide me with documentation. Say if you're sick, a medical note. Although, I believe that's actually been suspended in light of COVID-19, and I tend to be very accommodating anyway. If you tell me you're sick, we use the honor system. I tend to believe you. We're all adults here. If you tell me you're sick, I'll believe you. But do not abuse that trust. If you tell me you are bereaved, I believe you. No need to hook me up with an obituary or something. And if you have something else going on, a virtual conference or some kind of extracurricular activity that interferes with an assignment, or if you have a religious obligation or a family obligation, that's okay too. I tend to be very accommodating. I just ask that you let me know ahead of time so that we can work something out, an alternative due date or something like that. So, yes, sorry if I sound like a broken record here, but yes, I will be very accommodating with whatever comes up in your life because I know this is a pretty crazy start to 2021. But I'm here to help. Don't be shy. We can work something out. Okay? Okay. The last couple of things in the course outline are fairly standard. It's just a note on plagiarism. I'm not going to go through this in detail until we, start talking about the essay and the reading responses in more detail. But do take a look at the section on plagiarism. I do have to tell you that plagiarism is a very serious academic offense, and it will not be tolerated in this class. I will say more about that next time, but again, for now, just take a look at the plagiarism section, familiarize yourself with it, make sure you do not plagiarize anything ever. It's not a good idea. It will go on your permanent record, and it can result in anything from receiving a 0 on the assignment that you've plagiarized, to failing a class, to withdrawing from the university, withdrawing for your studies. So that is the cardinal sin in academia, plagiarism. Do not plagiarize. Okay? Great. Finally, you can look at the grading system. We've got all the letter grades here, what your number grades are equivalent to letter grade wise here at Carleton University. Get familiar with this if you like. And requests for special academic accommodation. You can find more details about this on the final page, the Department of Philosophy and Carleton University Policies page. But if you need academic accommodations, that's great. Again, let me know. I'm here to help. Many students who require accommodations may already have them in place via the Paul Menton Center. If not, if you find you have some learning difficulties, talk to me. If you find these difficulties are affecting your performance at the university level, you can always go to the Paul Menton Center. I imagine that this would all be done virtually now, and you can have an assessment, see if we can identify any difficulties with learning, and further identify things that we can do to overcome those difficulties, because everybody really needs to be on the same level playing field here. So don't be shy, if you want to talk to me, or if you need to talk to someone at the Paul Menton Center, if you need academic accommodations. Similarly with religious accommodations, no problem. We're in a very diverse society here. We've got all kinds of folks from all over the world. And we accommodate religious holidays no matter your creed, okay? So that's going to be fine. Don't worry about that. If you've got a holiday and you need to observe that and you need to put your work on the back burner, you do that. You just let me know so that I can work with you. And, oh yes, pregnancy obligation as well. We can't forget about that, of course. If something to do with a pregnancy interferes with your coursework, that's okay. Just let me know so that we can sort everything out. Okay? All right. Finally, all of the important dates for the winter semester are on the last page of your course outline here. So if you forget when winter break starts, or when the last day of the exam period is, or when the exam period starts, or when the last day of class is, or when family day is, and blah, 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 just check there, and all that info is there for you. You can also find it on the, the Carleton University website as well. Well, that is all I have for you today. I never think that it's a wise idea to lecture too much during the first lecture, so I try not to lecture at all. I just try to get you all up to speed with the things you'll need to know. So now you know. You know the reading list, the course schedule, what to expect, the kind of thinking that went into the design of this course. So, that's it. We're all set to get started for our next lecture, which will be on Wednesday. Again, for that lecture, I want you to read They're Made Out of Meat by Terry Bisson. The reading is already available on See You Learn. It's very short, and after you've read that, maybe you'll want to check out the short film adaptation that I've also made available. And tell me what you think in the comments section. It's a very interesting short story / short film. Very interesting. It's designed to get you thinking about the kinds of questions that we're going to confront in this class. So, well, I suppose that's everything. What else can I say? Well, you know who I am. You know what this class is all about. You know that we're going to be asking questions of the mind, whether the mind is the soul, or whether the mind is a machine, or whether it is something else altogether. And we're going to confront other questions as we explore how minds have been understood throughout history, from antiquity to the present. You know, we're going to talk about what thinking is. We're going to talk about what reasoning is. What is the difference between knowledge and belief and mere opinion? Important things. We're also going to be talking about metaphysics and epistemology, and maybe even a little ontology. Ontology is the study of being, by the way. So all of this is to say, if you're a science fiction nerd like I am, I think you will enjoy this class. As I said earlier, I designed this class such that it would be a class that I would have enjoyed, you know, given what my interests are now and what they were when I was an undergrad. A class that I would have enjoyed when I was an undergrad. So I've collected, bits and pieces of philosophy from antiquity all the way to the 20th century that all deal with the questions that we will confront here. What is the mind? What is thinking? What is the relation of the mind to the body? Do we have free will? Can machines like computers and robots have free will? How does consciousness work? And could a machine be conscious? These are the kinds of interesting questions we are going to confront in this seminar. So I look forward to delivering these learning materials to you, and I think this is going to be a really fun learning journey for you as well as for me. With that, I bid you all a farewell for now. I look forward to seeing you all on Wednesday, even though I suppose I won't technically be seeing you. I'll just be talking at you from a screen somewhere. But in any case, I hope you all enjoy the class. I hope I've explained the course outline and the learning objectives clearly. I hope you were all looking forward to learning about minds and machines and philosophy of mind and artificial intelligence. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun together. So I'll see you all next time. Bye for now, everybody.